Hello, everyone, and welcome back to this week's Grow Wealthy Live. Whoop, whoop. Grow Wealthy Grooming. So let me do my little intro, and don't mind me. My room is a little bit of a mess today. I've been organizing and getting ready for a couple of trips. I'm going to the CFMG beach retreat. I'm going to an entrepreneur experience in San Diego, and I'm going to Business Boutique, which is a get-together of women entrepreneurs all in October. So I'm going to be going like 20 days in October. It's going to be a little crazy. So trying to get everything ready has been a little crazy. So for those of you guys that are new, welcome to, the Savvy Groomers Grow Wealthy Grooming. I am Riverly. I am your host. I am a CFMG. I own a feline exclusive mobile grooming business. I have been in the pet industry over 10 years in multiple facets. If you want to learn more about me, please feel free to go to my website, which is savvygroomer.com. There you can learn more about myself, free resources, and my business coaching. Please consider joining me weekly, Mondays at 7 p.m. Eastern Time on this show, which is Grow Wealthy Grooming. You can subscribe so you never miss a video. If you're a pet groomer, please feel to apply to my Facebook group called Finances for the Grooming Industry. We would love to see you guys there. So let's have a conversation about how do I save money if I'm struggling? So first things first, I want to talk to you guys individually as employees and as business owners, as usual. I know how frustrating it can be to be a business owner and have someone talking to me as an employee, because it's a very different scenario versus if you're an employee. There are a lot of things about being a business owner that, may or may not be relevant to you. So let's begin with our employees. Now, if you're an employee, one thing I want to ask you is, did you seek employment in a place that you can afford to work at? Sometimes we pick jobs we love because they're close. We love the people we work with. Maybe you're getting, it's a mentorship program, but maybe you can't afford to actually work for them. And you might be like, what does that mean, afford to work for them? So if I asked you how much money you have to make in order to survive, live, and thrive, do you know how much that is? I've been telling a lot of people that Savvy Groomer does what's called the roadmap to financial success. And I will put that in the next video that you guys can see it. You can also go on my website and look at the financial journey and see that is built into 3 spots, which is survive, live, and thrive. And there are 9 stages in that and steps that you can take in order to become financially successful. So with that in the beginning, some of that really is deciding, is the job you're working, do you earn enough? A perfect example is right now, depending upon your lifestyle, ask yourself, how much money do I need in order to live, I should say survive, and just pay the bills? How much money do I need to live where I have enough money to survive and enough to be comfortable? And whether that's little creature comforts like Netflix, mine are my coffees, little things that make you happy. You're not living like a monk or in a cave. And then thrive is putting money towards retirement, having the correct insurances, which you should anyway, but a lot of times we just simply cannot afford a lot of those extra luxuries that come with being in thrive. So knowing where you are and your financial stance will help you begin there. And knowing how much money you need to earn in order to do that. So let's say for easy numbers, to just pay the bills, you need $2,000 a month. To be comfortable, you need $4,000. But in order to really take off and really begin to thrive in your life, you need about $6,000. Well, if you take a job making $400 a week after taxes, you're never going to get ahead. Not only are you not making enough money to just pay the minimum, you're not really able to move on to the next level. And ask yourself, why are you doing that? And if you're saying, okay, I'm going to take a pay cut, I'm going to lose some money for a couple of months because I did this. I worked as a free intern, free groomer, who after I got out of grooming school for 6 months, I worked for free and I learned hand stripping. I learned, cuts that I will never do again because at least I learned really easily that, like I have a standard poodle. I send her a groomer. There's a reason. I love it, but hand searching an entire dog is not for me. It is not for me. That's why I groom cats now. But, doing that, I had to ask myself, okay, can I take this pay cut for 6 months? And I had to work those extra hours on top of other jobs. So that may be something you need to get a second job. So I'm not going to go too much further into that, but if you're an employee, is the place you're working, you're making enough money? And if you're like, yes, in fact, I need $2,000 a month to just survive, but I'm actually making $5,000. I'm like, perfect. So you should be in live and almost enough to thrive. Perfect. Right? You're like, that's perfect. Perfect job. So if you have enough money, then why aren't you saving? And this is where, again, are you doing a written budget? And I know everyone's scared of the word budget. It's not scary. It's not, I promise. A budget is not about withholding money. A budget is all about giving your money direction. I generally use the example of an appointment book. If we just had customers come and go as they pleased, and they just showed up whenever they wanted to, and they just picked up whenever they wanted to, our lives would be in chaos. Even if you have a really loose kind of like drop off in the morning, you pick up at night, at least you have a system. Essentially what you're doing with your money is you're letting them drop off. They're like, hey, I'm bringing Fluffy in for a haircut. And you say, sure, whatever. Okay, here you go, I'll groom you. And then other things come up and you hadn't anticipated those things. You didn't know the once a year Samoyed was going to walk in. Even though you knew he generally comes once a year and it's generally August, but you weren't sure exactly when he's going to come. And I know for those of you guys that don't like, analogies like this, it's kind of far-fetched, but I really love them. And what I find is that, things like a Samoyed are car repairs. You're going to need a car repair. You have an older car. The car is going to break down. Do you have money set aside? No, but you knew they were coming. Ultimately, at some point, when it was going to come. So then you're asking yourself, so I'm going to do a written budget. You've agreed to that. Again, Personal Finance and Alicia is a great way to learn how to do a budget, because a lot of people do budgets as in they just write down bills and they call it a budget. That's not a budget. It's a list of bills. A budget is you are setting limits on what you're going to spend. So you figure out how much money you're going to make. And I know we make commission, and this is where we talk about mean income and all of that. And, and again, it's a lot easier to teach this in Personal Finance and Unleashed than this. There's a lot of steps to this, but try to follow me. Get your mean income, and then go ahead and figure out how much you're going to need, right? And then you have to take that money and give it a purpose. You have to fill your appointment slots. So think about your money like those customers, and they all want appointments. You have to go, okay, I can fit these customers here. And that is essentially what your budget is. Your budget is saying, okay, I can fit 2 dogs and an 8 if they're 2 little dogs, or I can fit 1 big dog. 2 little bills or 1 big bill in this paycheck, right? So think of it like that. And so it's going to be a lot easier to do a budget if you think about it like that. And again, if you are making more than remember the survive, which is the bare minimum, the live, which is just enough to be comfortable, and then your thrive, which is all the other goodies like retirement, which we all need retirement. Otherwise, we're all going to be eating dog food. Not even like the dog food that we feed our dogs, like the dog food that we would like judge our customers to feed our dogs. So getting on a written budget is going to help you. Again, I hate to beat a dead horse. That's a very terrible saying. I don't mean to repeat myself. That's going to really help. Okay, so you're like, okay, well, I'm on a written budget. I make enough money, but I still can't save. Okay, well, if you're on a written budget and you make more than you need to just survive, what is the next thing? Generally speaking, with savings, it could also be that you are not paying attention to what you're actually spending. So yes, you have a budget, but you're not tracking your expenses. And this, again, would be very similar to if you had an appointment book and you write down what everyone's appointment should be, but then you're not actually paying attention if people are coming and going. So I use an app called EveryDollar. You can either input it directly or you can use EveryDollar to have the upgrade where you can just swipe your, it goes directly to your bank account and you can just swipe it right into your categories, which are fantastic. So if I go out to eat today, I can just grab it and swipe it into restaurants. I personally don't do that because I find I overspend. The more I make something automated, the less I pay attention to it. And I need to pay attention to my money because I need to be intentional with it. The same way with, appointments, I want to make sure I check in and out my customers because then I know, okay, Fluffy left, I inputted the notes and, hit whatever I need to do, whether it was report cards or anything like that. So again, let's say you're inputting that in. So let's say you didn't write in the budget, you may have plenty of money and you're still, you're inputting all of your amounts and you still don't have money. Well, there should be money left over. And when you're doing a zero-based budget, when you're putting that money, you have to actually allocate money, actually write a category for savings. And so in Roadmap to Financial Success, first you've written budget. That's the first step. And the second is to have a starter emergency fund. I like to call it a little safety net. Employees, I really like to see you guys have at least $500 to $1,000. It sounds like a lot of money until you think about anything you've ever had. Think about the last time you had a little emergency. It was at least $500. Your dog eats a sock that's $5,000. You need a day out of work. You're going to lose at least $200 to $500. Car breaks down. It's at least $500 to $1,000. So that's the minimum. I would like to see you guys that are employees do that. Beyond that, we talk later about a fully funded emergency fund, but I don't want to scare you yet. So let's say, again, you make more than enough money. Well, enough to live, more than enough to survive, enough to live, not quite thrive. You're on a written budget. You go ahead and you input all of your expenses every day. And now you have realized in your budget, you need to actually allocate money for savings. So you're like, okay, all of that. Well, then there's really no excuse other than you're lazy. If you're on a written budget and you're allocating money and you've written, I just say $500 a month, something's going on. Now, there could be drama in your life. Maybe there's family trouble or something else going on. Those things you can't always assume life is going to happen. Sometimes those things happen out of it. But if you tell yourself, I'm going to put away $500 this month and you spend it on popsicles, you have no one to blame but yourself. Now, if you have a chronically sick pet, if you have a family member who's asking you for money, these are things that you're going to have to make lifestyle choices about. And that's tough. It's tough to make lifestyle choices. I'm not saying if a pet's sick, do anything with that, but maybe instead of going out to eat, maybe you have to sell your car and get rid of your car note in order to maintain that pet as long as they can. Because if they're going to be very sick and need medication for another 3 to 5 years, it's not sustainable to not save anything for 3 to 5 years. You're going to have to go back into your lifestyle and cut something. Okay. So now, if you are in a position where you're not making enough money, right? You're an employee, you're not making enough money. What can you do? Get a second job. Now, I hate saying this because as a pet groomer, you work way too hard. I work way too hard. I don't want a second job. Have I ever had a second job? Absolutely. When I was a doggy daycare manager, I was also a dog trainer. I, for the most part, until I started owning my own businesses, always had more than one job. Because in the pet industry, it really is an ebb and flow. It's unfortunate but true. There are times when we make lots of money. There are times where we make no money. And generally when one business was making more money, the other business was not. And so I was able to do that. At one point in my shop, before I really started hiring other employees, when we were in the beginning stages, I want to say by the first year and a half, I picked up a second job because I wanted extra income in order to put that into the business. Now, instead of putting it into the business, I would have much rather me been smarter and put it into me and put it towards retirement or put it towards my savings. Mainly because, again, that's treating my business like a personal piggy bank. Because then what happened, I did all that extra work and all this, and then what happened on the flip side, then when my actual business was making more money, I was like, "Oh, score. This is more of my money," instead of taking the money that the business earned and reinvesting it. And that's what I should have done in a more proper way. But, you live and you learn, and now I tell you all about it. So if you're struggling as an employee, getting a second job is an option. Another option is to start your own little side business. I hesitate to say this, but there are a lot of great people that have started their house call business while they were working full time for somebody else. That is always an option. There are so many great resources on learning how to house call. You do need insurance, you do need all of those things, but house call is such little overhead. I believe, and do not quote me, in my state, a year's worth of house call insurance is $100. A lot of people will buy the little tiny tables with a little tiny grooming arm. They'll buy these little totes that they can go with. The overhead is incredibly low, and you can immediately make some money, build a small business. And, when you're done with that, you can leave it and either sell it to another groomer who wants to take it over, or, you can always move your clients if you ever want to go salon, you want to go mobile. There's always other options to move that into a different facet of your business. Or if you don't ever want to own your own business, you could always, again, pick up another job with a house call groomer and say, hey, if you give me your, prove that you're competent, and say, hey, if you ever want somebody for extra work, I'll do it for $20 an hour. I mean, depending on what your hourly is where you live. I know some people say, I would never work for $20 an hour, $25 an hour. But when you figure it out, when you work per hour, good, bad, or indifferent, we do a lot of stuff that we're not getting paid for when we're commission, and it generally works out. It generally works out to about $20 to $35 an hour, depending upon the dogs, the sizes, all of that. So getting a steady paycheck is sometimes easier. So let's say you don't want to do house call, or I would not open up a mobile if you're looking just to make some extra money. If you're struggling, obviously buying $100,000 grooming van is a bad idea. Obviously, if you're struggling, running a salon it would be insane. And that would be just downright insane to open up a shop if you're struggling. But what are some other tactics? So let's say you've exhausted those. Go ahead and try and find some stuff to sell. Go in your drawers and see what you have. I promise you have way too many scissors. You have way too many blades. You have extra clippers. I mean, I know one groomer went into her closet and found out she had 2 extra dryers. She had extra K910s. I'm sorry, not K910s, K93s in there just hanging out. I'm thinking KM10s. That's another thing you can sell. Whatever it is that you have extra of. I always had like 3 to 5 clippers. I don't even know why. I was like, because I'm an Andis girl and I want this Andis. And then they came out with the ZR, so I got that. But then with cat grooming, I like the KM10, so I have one of those. And they came out with a wireless, so I got that. And I literally have 4 Bravuras. I just like collecting these things. I really enjoy them. So you can sell one. Is it going to get you as much as you paid for it? Never. But that's okay, because then you can have it and then you can sell it. And then if you need another one down the road when you're more financially stable, it's okay. You'll have the money later. So don't worry about it. I'm not saying you can't have this now. You're going to eventually have it. So don't worry about it. What else could you do, right? Consider asking your boss for a raise. Again, this is where I really prefer people to have hourly. Hourly is a lot easier, because if you are commission-based, you really can't have a raise. They're not going to increase their prices for you as an employee. That's not going to happen. You really can't ask an employer to raise the prices on their dogs. If you have a specialty that's very expensive, you can say, I would like to focus on that. A perfect example is someone who does bath and haircut dogs. And let's say the bath dogs are like $25 for a lab, where a Shih Tzu haircut is $65. You can always say to your boss, hey, I really can't afford to take commission on a $25 lab bath when I have to turn away, $65 Yorkies or Shih Tzus. and just explain them. Say, I have a more, my skill set and at my level, I would like to focus on doing that. And they may say no, and that sucks because personally, like some people are like, "Oh, labs take no time," and I'm like, "What are you talking about? Like, I don't want to be covered in hair. I don't want to blow dry. I like a full day of blow drying, but money wise, it doesn't make any sense. I'm going to make, you know, $10 doing a lab, or I'm going to make 45. Well, figure 50% at, which you really shouldn't be paid 50%, but that's besides the point. Of a $60 dog, I'm going to make 30, or I might want to make 15. It takes the same, honestly, it takes the same amount of time because labs are insane. So, that's all of it. So again, you can talk to your boss if you're an employee, because we're talking about employees right now. For those of you guys that are just joining. So what else can you do? So we've done all these things and we want to go ahead and start saving some money. I generally do not suggest you guys do a large sale. So just like grooming stuff, small stuff, but try not to do something big like sell your car and downgrade your car unless if you're ready to make a big life change. I've seen a lot of people that will sell like a car they paid off and it's a decent car. It's got like 120,000 miles on it. And they sell it. They're going to go get a hoopty, like a car with 200, 300,000 miles. And it's like $1,000 versus the $15,000 car. You're not going to want to be in that $1,000 car very long. And, being in the grooming industry, we need the money in order to get to work and be comfortable. And don't chance that. Don't worry about that right now. Don't do anything crazy like that. So, again, you're like, okay, well, all right. So I looked through my drawers. I found some stuff to sell. What else can I do to start saving money when I'm struggling? A lot of it comes down to lifestyle. Then we're going to talk about the obligation versus priorities. And this is a hard conversation. This is an awkward conversation. What are you spending your money on? Start going through your budget and say, okay, what am I actually spending money on? And I know, because we already agreed, right? We already agreed at this point that you're doing the written budget. You're already keeping track of it. So we know it's not holes like that. What can you cut? And I generally don't suggest cutting anything lifestyle-wise that makes you really freaking happy, because it's going to make you're just going to fail. So perfect example, completely arbitrary. I love Starbucks coffee. That is my thing. I get cinnamon dolce lattes made with coconut milk, and it makes me a much nicer person in the morning. I love it. It makes me so freaking happy. So if I were to try to cut those out, and people are like, oh, you spend all the money on coffee. Why you spend money on coffee? It's like, because it makes me happy. And if I'm happy, I'm a better worker. If I'm a better worker, I do my job better. So when you're picking things like that, don't pick things that you really enjoy, that make you happy, that make you a better worker. Because if you cut those things out, then it's going to make it really hard for you to continue on. Eventually what's going to happen is you're going to feel weary from grooming. You're going to feel burnt out. And a lot of that's because you've sucked all the joy out of your life. And let me get back to here. Just checking my notes, guys. Sorry about that. So a lot of that comes down to, if you're struggling, why you're struggling. Is it lifestyle choices? Sometimes it's just bad luck. Sometimes you have just gotten the shit out of the stick. And in this point in your life right now, you are going to be in a position where you're not going to be happy. And you've got to figure out the best way to get out of that. So if you're struggling and you're trying to save money, think about it to yourself, and you've already gone through everything and you've cut where you can cut, and you're making enough money, then what is it that is stopping you from saving? Is it your habits? Do you have an automatic withdrawal? Sometimes it's easier if you're an employee, especially. It's a lot easier for you every paycheck to have a certain amount of money go into an account. I love a online banking called Smarty Pig. It is made by Sally Mae. And so I have a specific amount of money go right into my Smarty Pig account. And I have different categories. So I have my son's tuition there, his college savings. I have my savings for my travel. I have my emergency fund. So I have all those little different accounts. And they're not accounts, they're just like little savings goals, I guess is what you would call them. And so I have that online. I really enjoy using that because then I like watching my goals grow. So you can use that as well. Again, with savings, a lot of it comes down to why you don't have savings. Most of us don't have savings because we either have debt or we're overspending. So if you're an employee and you're not overspending, then you're probably in debt. And if you're in debt, look at what you're in debt for. And again, this is generally where people start getting really frustrated with debt because savings and debt are the same animal. One's a Great Dane and one's a Chihuahua. No, just kidding. Pretty much what's happening there is debt is you have already spent the money and now you're working to pay it off. Savings is you're going to work and you're going to have the money. So they're just the opposite ends of the thing. They're just opposite ends. So what you're going to be able to do is figure out how you're going to get from being in debt to savings. And everyone's road is very different. You can, like I said, you can take extra jobs, you can start selling things, but really it's all about making the decision. In Personal Finance and Unleashed, we talk about 2 different characters in Survive because most of us are these characters. We're either both, I'm both, or one or the other. So these characters are Sally Survive and Samantha Spender. And so when we're really struggling to save, what's happening there is it's one of 2 reasons. It's either you just can't get ahead. No matter how much money you make, you can't get ahead. And again, most of the time, if you can't get ahead, it's either the income is not there and you have to either get a different job or pick up a second job. Or, with this, you're not on a written budget and you have no idea where your money is going and you have no control and therefore you feel powerless. With Samantha Spender, generally speaking, it's the I deserve trap. And there are things you have earned. There are things that you deserve. Absolutely. But with this spending trap, what's happening is that you say to yourself, I work so hard all Saturday. I deserve XYZ. I deserve a really nice dinner. And instead of just saying to yourself, I'm going to spend whatever reasonable is to you, whether reasonable is $50 on dinner, or it's $100, whatever it is, but you're going to overblow it because you have almost this resentment and you're just going to spend versus if you say, okay, I've got $200 to spend going out to eat and I'm going to spend this much money. But Samantha Spender is almost a vindictive spending. And I get like this. Everyone does. If you're perfect, it's fantastic. But for me, what I find myself getting trapped with is it's generally a luxury item. It's generally something I really, really think I want in that moment. Or something that makes my life better. I'm trying to think of it with a great example. Probably, I would say a nice car. So I drove a 2008 minivan, which I adored, but I was ready to upgrade. So you get in the trap of wanting a nicer car. And where normally if you saved up and you pay cash, that you are going to generally get a better deal. You're going to really think about it more because if you were going to spend, let's say 20 grand on a car, you're really going to think about that. You're going to make sure that car is mint. You're going to make sure everything, because you're handing 20 grand, you have all that money. You go, okay, here you go. You feel the weight of that versus if you just sign up for a payment, it's like $400 a month. Well, yeah, but that's $20,000. And then you got a car that, at that point is ready to be replaced. So again, you have to be careful of the I deserve. I earned is a better mindset than I deserve because we all earn things and we do deserve them. But there's just a mentality. If my son, who's going to be 9 in April, came up to me and said, I earned this money and I'm going to go buy ice cream, I'd be like, you do that. Versus debt is I deserve ice cream. And you're like, I'm not lending you $1 to get ice cream. It's just a bad attitude, right? So go ahead and think about that, like the earn versus deserve. All right. So I've talked a lot about employees, and I feel like that's a lot because I find employees, if you guys are struggling, it's generally because you need to get a written budget, which everyone does. You don't make enough, you need a new job, you need a second job, or lifestyle issues. A lot of these are going to translate over to our business owners. But let's also talk about the elephant in the room with business owners, which is, are you keeping your business and your personal separate? And that's very important. And I know we've talked about this in my blog article called, Not Your Piggy Bank. And it's so important for you to not get your business and your personal finances intermingled. In a perfect world, if you are a business owner, you should be paying yourself a salary, an hourly wage, or a commission based as if you were an employee. I know no one likes to hear that, but that's what you should be doing. So with that, are you paying if you are, let's say again, so if you're commingling things, the first thing you have to do is separate them. Treat your business and your personal very separate. There are very few honest expenses that are your expenses that your business should be paying. Most of the time, that is just embezzlement. You would be arrested if that was if you worked for somebody else. Don't do it. There are definitely creative tax things you can do. Definitely creative tax things you could do. Talk to your tax professional. Make sure they're willing to deal with an audit for free. If they're going to tell you things like you can put your personal car's payment through your business, if they tell you things like that, be very wary. But whatever it is. So first things first, if you're a business owner, separate personal and business. That's going to be the very first thing you need to do. You have to do that. If you do not do that, eventually it will come to bite you in the ass. And if you are a hobby groomer or you own a hobby business, it's never going to be a problem because you are treating it like a hobby. A hobby costs you money, a business makes you money. So for those of you guys that are like, okay, well, I'm definitely a professional groomer. I'm not a hobby groomer. And all right, I've definitely started to separate my business and my personal. Now what? Okay. Why are you not having enough money? Why would you say struggle? Like, I use the word struggle very intentionally. What do you feel like is making you struggle if you're a small business owner? One thing is hiring employees at way too high of a wage. Giving an employee 50% of gross profit, which is profit before you take out all of your expenses, is very difficult. I go to a lot of business conferences outside of the grooming industry, and 30% is really the highest. They would like to see a service-based industry, not 50%. And the reason why is because between paying for, basic things like just even in business, workers' comp insurance, making sure that you are their legal employees, paying for payroll, paying for all these things, it eats into your cost. And you need enough money from these employees that eventually you can upgrade your salon, or you can hire a manager. Ideally, you should have as you keep growing, because if you're only going to have one or two employees, honestly, it's very tough to make it enough money to make it worth having employees, because employees are so expensive. And those of you guys that are employees, trust me, owning employees are very, very, very expensive. Legal employees, not illegal independent contractors. Those are very cheap. But if, or money under the table, those are very cheap. But if you want to hire someone legally, there's a lot of things you have to do. And there's a lot of differences in the business. And once you get to that point, it makes it a lot harder. And honestly, as employees, it's very important for you guys to know that if something goes wrong, you can walk away. Your employer can't. If something bad happens, you can go get another job. That person may lose $40,000, $50,000 of their investment. So employees, be a little nice to little business owners. But yes, business owners, if you're struggling to save money either in your personal life or in your business, is it because you're not paying your employees in a way that you can honestly afford? That is kind of painful. I've known lots of groomers say, I run a very successful business and I have all these employees and we make all of this money. But then when you actually look at how much money they make and how much money the owner can actually take home, It's crazy. I saw one person, they were making a gross of about 450, so $450,000. The owner was making $22,000. And that's because the dogs they groomed didn't count and they actually would go towards the business. It was not good. I mean, the liability on that, the more dogs you groom, the more likely you are to get sued, the more likely you are to have something bad happen, the more likely you are to get crucified on social media. If you're going to be doing all of that work, you need to get not just be paid if you're an employee in your business, but also get an owner draw. And for those of you that guys that don't know, an owner draw pretty much means money because you invested in a business. Yes, just the fact that you've invested the money in a business means that you should get some of the money back. So let's pretend that you're like, nope, I pay my employees under 30%, or I pay them an hourly wage and that payroll is under 30%. Perfect. Okay, what is another reason? Maybe you took out a lot of debt in the business and the business doesn't have enough money to pay you. So what do I do about that? Well, make it a priority to pay off the debt in your business. Maybe that means working more hours. Maybe that does mean hiring an employee. Figuring out, maybe that means raising prices. These are all valid ways to do that. And again, remember, the business is not going to pay off you and not going to help you save, because the business also needs to make their own emergency fund. The business needs to have its own emergency fund. So the business needs to pay off that debt, not to help you necessarily, but in order to save up for their own emergencies. I know that kind of sucks. That's why being a business owner, it should be we should take it more seriously in this industry. We should really take being a business owner very, very seriously. Like, okay, well, the business doesn't have any debt, which is amazing. Go you. Great. So what is another reason you might be struggling as a business owner to save money? Some of it may be the fact that you aren't actually making as much money as you think you are. What is going on in your business that there's a lot of ebb and flow? How could you stop the ebb and flow? And we're all going to have ebb and flow in the grooming industry. Come spring, everyone depending upon where you live weather-wise. So I live in New England. We have 4 seasons. Wintertime, depending upon your business model, you may have a huge drop off after you have high Thanksgiving, high Christmas, January, February, done. January, February in my old salon, we would be so dead, awful dead, incredibly dead. Yeah. So that could be one reason. Another reason could just simply be you're not very good at saving money. And you're like, well, that could be anybody. But when you're trying to save money as a business owner, it takes a lot more commitment because everything is pulling at you. And you're not very good at saving money. You're not very good at saying no. Because when you're a business owner and you need to prioritize money, you have to be good at saying no. You have to say no to marketing opportunities. You have to say no to hiring a new employee. You have to say no to upgrading things. You have to say no to going to a trade show sometimes. There are going to be a lot of things you're going to have to say no in order to funnel that money into a savings account. So how would I do this? Again, sell extra equipment like we said. Really look at your lease. Are there things that you could cut? Could you renegotiate? A lot of times if you tell your landlord, hey, I want to renegotiate. I've been a great tenant for the last 2-3 years. I know you generally go up. However, I'm willing to prepay a couple of months in advance and save some money. And you might be like, how the hell am I supposed to save money if I'm prepaying things? Because the business is not you. You have to worry about you. The business should have enough money in it that it can pay you as an employee. If your business cannot pay you as an employee, it is time to go through that business with a fine-tooth comb to figure out the viability of your business. Some of us own businesses that don't actually make any money. And if that's the case, you got 3 choices. You can either restructure it so it makes money. You can limp along till you can't anymore, or you can close. You can pick one of the three because it doesn't last forever. You can't run a business and not earning money forever. You just can't. I mean, you can if you have somebody to pay all the bills and you can just put the money in. But for those of us that don't have that kind of situation, you can't. So one of the main things, whether you're a business owner or an employee, about trying to save money is being diligent. And I know this sounds really silly. You're like, of course I'll be diligent. Well, doing small things. You can also do really fun, interesting small things. These I always kind of hate when people say them because I'm like, ugh, they're kind of cheesy. But fun tips you can do is save your change. Don't give your change away. Put your change in a jar and then I don't roll it. I just do the machine. A lot of the machines will give you a gift card. And if it's a gift card towards something you actually want or anything like that, you can save. That's not going to help you save a lot. So that's why I really don't suggest that. The main ways to start saving is to be diligent. Go ahead and put away $5. Start with $5 a week. Automatically gets taken out of your account. Like I said, I use Smarty Pig. Go and take $5 out of your account. Have it immediately go to your Smarty Pig and into your goal. Every week, $5. You know you can do $5. And then up it to 20. Go to 30. Other ways. If you get some people when they get cash, not a lot of people don't get cash, but cash is really good for you to be using because generally when you have cash, you spend less money. It's because cash actually hits the pain receptors in your brain. Debit and credit cards do not. If you don't believe me, buy stuff with cash for a week. You will literally feel like you're going to die. When I go out, whenever I go out, let's say and have a couple of drinks with my friends, I will bring cash. Why? Because when I buy a drink and for no good reason, it's $15. I'm like, what kind of crap is this? Versus if I had my debit card, I would just, oh yeah, whatever, cha-ching, cha-ching, cha-ching. But you feel it when you hand over $15 for a drink. You don't feel it with a debit card. Same thing with gas. You don't feel it. You just go, sure, whatever, sure, whatever. So go ahead and do that. If you do have cash, another good way of doing that is every time you get a $5 bill, save that. Some people do that. I find that kind of hard because I like keeping lower bills. So every time I break a 20, if I get 2 5s, you'd be saving that. And that would really screw up my personal budget. But that is a good way to start saving things. Without sounding like a mama hen, tips. Tips. What are you doing with your tips? I don't know about you guys, but especially when I work corporate, I made amazing tips. When I owned my own business, people were weird about tipping the owner, which I think is crap. It's just give, I'm a groomer too. Give me my money. But take your tips and put them in a savings account or put them towards one thing. If you have one thing that you really, really love, like vacation fund, whatever it is, I don't care if it's savings, put your tips towards it, and then instead of, so when I first started getting tips, I think I was at PetSmart and I remember like just taking my tip money and that's what I would spend on lunch. I'd be like, oh, I got $20 today. Okay, cool. I can eat something decent. Or I only got $5 today. All right, I'm just going to get a coffee. And think about how much money you're just blowing because again, there's no limit. So if you put that all in a jar at the end of the week, you'll know how much you get in tips. For those of you guys that get tips into your check, generally speaking, those are our employees. However, some business owners, like I get mine tips in my check because I have Square. Go ahead and pull it out. I actually have my business write me another check. That way I know it's separate, and decide what you're going to allocate that towards. It doesn't have to be savings, but savings is a great way to do that. We could go into a lot of other things. I know there's been a lot of information today. I know it may not be like, I hate the article. I'll just be honest. Like I hate articles that are like, like, oh, every time you find change on the ground, don't leave it, go grab it. I'm like, well, duh, like that's simple. But more effective ways would be things like what we talked about earlier, making sure you're on a written budget, looking at your lifestyle, making sure you are working a job that you can afford to work at. Whoop. Don't mind me. Just these things that we talked about earlier. So don't feel powerless. You can have control. And if you are struggling, I want to really encourage you. If you cannot afford to join my online course called Personal Finance in a Leash, I want you to encourage you to at least join my Facebook group called Finances for the Grooming Industry, or come here every week with me Monday at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. What's nice about here is that if you guys have questions, you're welcome to ask me them. I can't always answer them right away, but I will either follow up with you or I will go ahead and do a follow-up video for you. Now, it's really nice to get at least some of these things started and working on it. And what I will say about Personal Finance in a Leash is it is a $500 online course, but you will see so much value. Every single person so far that has taken my online course has earned all of their money back and more. One of my clients, Paige, she actually was able to save $14,000 in 12 weeks. I mean, you can't get any better than that. Most of the time, we can't save money because we're struggling. Again, do you need a different job? What's going on in your life? And we're here to help you. I would love to talk with you guys. As you guys know, in different points of my life, when I lived in my car and my son, for those of you guys that don't know, I opened my grooming salon up 4 days before my son was born. I lived in my car. My son's father had kicked me out. It was a really nasty, terrible experience, but I couldn't save money then because I didn't have any, and I had to work really hard in my business, and I had to pick up an extra job at one point to earn enough money to do that, and there's been other times where I wasn't able to save money because I was really angry and in a bad emotional place. So I spent money because I deserve. So we all go through these ebb and flows. So, I would love to hear you guys sharing, if you are struggling financially, what of these strategies are you going to be using? Did you identify why you're struggling? What is it that you're going to do in the future? Because right now you may not be in a place to save because you have so much other things on your plate. But when will you? That's the beautiful thing about the roadmap to financial success. Once you start on that roadmap, you're going to be able to change your life. And that is the best part. I love that. That makes me super happy. All right, ladies and gentlemen, it was lovely to talk with you. As usual, I am River Lee, the founder of Savvy Groomer. I want to invite you to go ahead and join me every Monday at 7 p.m. for this online. That's how you know it's real. For this live show, Grow Wealthy Grooming, where we talk about your problems and how to benefit from that. Please sign up if you're a groomer for my Facebook group, Finances for the Grooming Industry, and look out for my online course, Personal Finance in a Leash. Personal Finance in a Leash is live twice a year. We may open that up for self-study and then 2 boot camps, but we will talk about that more, I promise. All right, guys. Happy grooming.